Hello friends and welcome back to another Christmas DIY video. We are crafting some homemade Christmas ornaments. Let's get started. We are going to start with some puzzle pieces. I have these from a puzzle, I picked up from the Dollar Tree. I've done other crafts with them and that's what I'm going to use. Now, I have limited shapes of puzzle pieces because it's just a really inexpensive puzzle rather. And so I'm just going to work with what I've got. I am not actually putting the puzzle together because that sounded like it would take a long time, but I am making pieces fit together into little pieces. We are going to be making a snowflake. So I'm making all of the spokes, I guess, of a snowflake. I don't know what they're called, but all of the little arms, the little pieces that go out. And so I'm trying to do 2 pieces going horizontal with 1 going vertical in between because that was the only way I could do it. So I made 6 of those and made them fit best I could, and then I'm just using a paint bottle to trace out a circle on a piece of cardstock. This cardstock isn't as thick as I wanted, so I'm going to do 2 of them. So I cut out the first one and then I just hot glue them together and cut out the second one. This circle doesn't have to be perfect by any means, but it's going to give us a center for our little snowflake. And I'm going to start by gluing 1 to the center, and then I'm going to try to glue the bottom piece of, well, you're going to just have to watch it, of each of the snowflake pieces to it. Now, I am going to say that it may have been easier to glue all of these together first. I didn't want to use hot glue to attach each puzzle piece to one another. I'm just using it to hot glue it to the base. And because these pieces aren't like meant to go together, they're not staying together super well. But either way, you're going to need to glue the puzzle pieces together. I decided to paint them first. I would suggest, I don't know that it's worth the effort of doing like puzzle glue, although that is a thing. And if you have some on hand, maybe that would be worth it. I would go in with just some Mod Podge and maybe doing that first. I don't know. This is how I did it, but I'm just going to say that it was a little bit of a struggle. But maybe you want to Mod Podge them together first and then paint. So, but here I am painting. We're going to do a couple coats on the front and the back. One thing to remember with ornaments is, they spin around on the tree. So you want to make sure the back is finished, even if it doesn't look the same. So we are going to paint both sides with a couple coats of white paint. Now this is just to give us a base. We are going to go in with some glitter, which if you don't want to use glitter, don't. Then maybe do a better job on your paint job. I know that glitter is a messy thing to have, but it's kind of, I don't know, usually worth it when it comes to Christmas stuff. But anyways, we're going to give this a base coat of white. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Leanne and I enjoy sharing budget-friendly DIYs here on this channel. I like to make it simple, easy, and have a lot of fun with that. So if you are into that, subscribe to my channel before you leave and make sure you turn on the notification bell. Now, after I got started, I just realized that the center of the snowflake needed to be built up some more. So I'm hot gluing on some more pieces and then we're just going to continue with our coats of paint. A lot of times when I get an idea for a craft, it either pops into my head or I see an image somewhere or I see something in the store and I don't necessarily have any ideas of how to make it happen. Even if I find something on Pinterest, I don't usually remember I usually never even click on like the photo to see if there is a tutorial of how to do it. I kind of just go with it. So I'm learning as I go and I'm sharing that process with you. I don't know, see something and then I'm like, I wonder if I can do that or if I can do something similar to that, and then I go for it. That is what you are seeing here, but I do like to show you because I think some people are naturally just instinctually creative and want to just figure it out. And then other people, and I find a lot of people that come to my channel want to see the do's and don'ts and what makes things difficult or don't. So that is why I like to share those bits with you. So now we're going to go in. I had this champagne colored, I think that's what it's called, glitter. So it's more of a gold. White would have been really fun and pretty, but I wasn't going to go buy more glitter for this because, well, I don't use a lot of glitter, really just at Christmas. So I'm putting on some Mod Podge, and that is going to help adhere the puzzle pieces together, and it's also going to give something for our glitter to stick with, or stick to. If you Mod Podged, then painted, You could put the glitter on top of some wet paint. It's kind of up to you. And I needed to do more Mod Podge, but I didn't want to risk getting glitter in my bottle of Mod Podge. So that's why you just saw me pour some out. And I was just like, listen, the Mod Podge, the glitter, the paintbrush, it's all going to get mixed together. It's okay. Just don't mix it into your bottle of Mod Podge, because then everything you use that on will be glittery in the future. I was going heavier with the glitter. You can go heavy, light, do whatever you want. We're going to do that on both sides. But like I said, this Mod Podge is also being used to, like, I tried to go pretty thick in the center of each piece to make sure that I was getting plenty of Mod Podge in between the puzzle pieces to help adhere this together. So yeah, we're going to Mod Podge, glitter, Mod Podge, glitter, let that dry. I am pouring the glitter over a piece of paper, which means I can take it and pour it back into the glitter container. Now I wanted to add another detail. So I have these little gem embellishments from the Dollar Tree. They come in a strip, and I didn't want that sticky strip because sometimes you can see the edges of it, and I didn't think it was going to be enough stickiness to adhere to glitter. So I'm peeling off the sticky part, and then I'm going to use a little dab of hot glue and press each one of these on here. Now it's hard to tell here. You can see better in the final shot, the pink contrasting with this like champagne-y colored glitter, which is like a more rose colored gold. And I didn't paint the pink gemstones. I just left them pink. I like to go off of my norm for Christmas ornaments. So yeah, I'm just placing those wherever I think it looks good. And then once this is all done, we are going to spray this with some hairspray to set in that glitter. And in the end, it doesn't end up shedding too bad. So spray it, let it dry, spray the other side, give it a couple coats if you need to. But I'm going, and you can see my snowflake's not perfect here. I love that homemade look. I feel like homemade Christmas ornaments look vintage to me. And I just love that look. And so I'm going for different colors, just different things that maybe aren't in my normal decor. It works for Christmas, at least in my opinion. So you do you, go with your style. Now, of course, we need to be able to hang up this Christmas ornament on our tree. So I'm just taking a little like natural colored thin twine and making a loop, seeing how long I need it. And then I'm going to just tie a little knot and hot glue that to the back of the snowflake. That knot just kind of gives you something to press into the hot glue. I find that just works well, especially when using something thin like this. It's really thin. And then that is it. Just make sure that you attach it in a way so that the loop is opened widthwise, so that when you hang it up, I hope you can see like that it's facing forward. Now, I don't have a tree right now to show you this on. I wish I did. I wanted to have it up by now, but it hasn't happened for various reasons. So I'm just showing it to you hanging up. Here you can see that color contrast. I love it. It's super fun. Let me know what you guys think of this one down below. For this next one, I'm going to use some scrapbook paper and this old wooden like thread spool. I have these small scrapbook paper packs from Hobby Lobby. One of them, I see an orange sticker on it, so at some point I got it on clearance. But there are lots of varieties in here. So I was just deciding which paper I wanted to use. I wanted to go for something that looked a little vintagey to me. So that is what I'm doing. We're going to pick out our paper. You don't have to have a huge selection. If you don't have any packs of paper, then just like go buy a couple papers that you really like. And oftentimes, like this one, I'm using very little of it. So I'm measuring down what I need to wrap the center of the spool with. And I'm using my paper cutter just to have super straight lines because, I don't know, I'm not super great with that. And we're just going to cut a strip small enough to wrap around the center of our spool. And we're going to just use a little bit of hot glue here because that's just kind of quick and easy. You don't need a lot, just a little dab to wrap that around and make that nice and secure. And then I'm going to use this white satin ribbon from the Dollar Tree, I'm pretty sure. And then I also need some bells. I really thought I was going to go with one of these larger jingle bells, but I ended up going with the smaller ones. So I chose to use 3 of the gold ones. And I'm just going to take you along on the journey here. So my plan is to have this satin ribbon come down through the center of the spool and attach to the bells. But the bells are so small and the ribbon is so big that it's just not working. So I tried, I was balancing the bell on top of the wooden spool. I don't know if you could tell that. I tried and it's just not working. So I pulled out this super thin white twine or thread. It was very small. I used a little bit of hot glue at the end to just kind of hold the ends together. And I'm also using this little crooked hook tool. I did get this from the Dollar Tree to help feed this through the bell. And I'm going to thread all 3 bells together so that it just makes a little bunch. Now, depending on what you have is going to depend on how you go about this, but I'm just using what I have and I'm showing you the process. So we're going to set the bells to the side. I took the satin ribbon, folded it in half to make a loop, and we're going to go from the top down to the bottom to pull that out. So the loop is going to be the top of the ornament because that's how we're going to hang it onto the tree. And I'm using every little tool I've got and some tweezers to pull that through the bottom. So I'm going to get that about the length that I need it. I'm going to take my bunch of bells and tie a little knot in them so that they're nice and tight and just bundled together. And then I need to attach this to the satin ribbon. So what I'm going to do is open up the 2 pieces of satin ribbon. I'm trying to explain it the best I can, but definitely watching is going to help. Put a little bit of hot glue and then shove that knotted thread in between the 2 pieces of satin ribbon. And then I did pull that out of the spool a little bit to pinch it together to make that nice and tight. Now I'm going to trim down the excess satin ribbon, and we don't want any of that to be seen. Then we're going to put a little bit of hot glue and pull that loop from the top of the ornament until the bells are nice and tight at the bottom of the wooden spool. So hopefully you're watching this and not just listening. I know sometimes I listen to YouTube. Some things are better to be watched. This is probably one of those. And so for another embellishment, I grabbed a shiny gold thread that was came with like some of the bells that I had that I didn't use. And I'm just tying this around the center of the paper. Just the paper had a little bit of kind of gold look to it. I tried to tie it in a bow, but it was too short. So I just tied it in a knot. I'm just using what I can to embellish this. Again, I'm going for an old, like rustic vintage look, and I'm just taking things that basically remind me of my childhood or something that I would have seen from my parents or grandparents, and that's what I'm going for. I did want to add a little bit of greenery up at the top, and I wanted to add a little pine cone, but my pine cones were too big, so I used some wire cutters. Careful, they go flying. And now we're going to just hot glue 2 scraps, tiny little scraps, but I told you before I save everything. Tiny pieces of greenery that are different, glue them together, and then we're going to glue them to the top here and add on the pine cone. Just remember that if you're creating a front and back to your ornament, you want to do it so that the loop is open when you're looking at the front so that it will go over a branch and it will stay facing forward. Now I got some hot glue on my ribbon, and I just wanted to share this tip with you. I'm using a heat gun. Be careful, it can get hot. You don't want to burn your fingers. You can also use a hairdryer, but this is just another way where this tool comes in handy because I knew that with this satin ribbon, if I just pulled the hot glue off, I could kind of mess up the ribbon. So I'm softening the hot glue and then gently pulling it off, kind of rolling it at times with my fingers. It came off great. Here is the finished product, this fun little wooden spool ornament. I love how this came out. Let me know what you guys think about this one down below. For this one, I went into my stash where I have some Scrabble letters. I have this from an old game that I was getting rid of. It was kind of messed up, and I saved the letters. You can buy like tile letters from Hobby Lobby and like other craft stores, I think even Walmart. I'm just using what I have. You can maybe find old games at thrift stores. However you want to find your letters, find your letters. And then I have this little scrap bag or scrap drawer in my craft space from things that I have taken apart. I believe this was a base, this wood piece was a base to one of those like 3D wood kits that you just kind of put the pieces into those little slats. I'm just going to use that, but you could use a little scrap piece of wood. You could even use a piece of cardboard. That would work fine too. Now, I wanted to cover this with ribbon, but I didn't have any small enough because I wanted the wood edges to be seen. I didn't want the whole thing to be covered. So I ended up going in with some red yarn. Yarn is another great thing that makes Christmas stuff look vintagey to me because, you know, people just made a lot of their own ornaments, whether it was fun or there was less commercialized stuff in the stores, or because of low cost. So I'm going to use some Mod Podge to lay this on, and I am just going to wrap it around. I'm going to be covering up those little holes, although you can kind of see them when it's all finished, but you don't really know what it is, and I don't care. So again, use what you have, and we're just going to put some Mod Podge on. Not too thin. You really do need it thick enough to like absorb into the yarn. So as I'm wrapping it around, I'm also pressing each line of yarn together, but also pressing it into the Mod Podge. And I just do it most of the way. I just wanted a little border on the top and the bottom for the wood to show. I did end up using some hot glue to help hold down the beginning and the end, but I didn't want to use hot glue the whole way around because hot glue can just be bulky and messy when you're using it around edges. So just be careful if you're using the hot glue. And once that is all secure, we're going to get our letters on. I went for the word peace. I love that word, not just for Christmas, but I love it. I also like the word joy, which is also a Christmas word, but I didn't have any J's. So I chose peace, and I'm just hot gluing that. And when I'm doing this, I'm pressing it down in to kind of go through that yarn as well to also help just finish kind of attaching it. And I start from the center, work my way out so that we keep it centered. And then I'm going to use some more red yarn to make our little hanger. So I'm just going to attach that a little bit at an angle here. And then I decided I wanted some more embellishments, I guess. So before I attach this, I was like, let's thread on some wood beads. So I'm using some hot glue to just kind of make that yarn like to a point, I guess, so I can thread it, this threaded on the beads very easily. And I just chose 4 beads, 4 small beads, 2 from each side, for each side, and then we're going to hot glue that other side down, and that completes our hanger. But I decided I wanted some more detail, so I had these little, I think it was like from the paper crafts of Hobby Lobby that I got on clearance, these little holly berries, and I decided I just think they look vintagey, which is why I picked them up, and I just used a little hot glue to attach that to the corner of this piece. It kind of sticks off over the edge, which I really like, and that was kind of finished this up for me using tweezers to pick off some extra hot glue while it's soft. And that is it for this one. I love this. It's so fun. You could do a name. You could definitely make it smaller and do a shorter word. There's, you could do your family, like last name, whatever you want to do. I just thought this was cute and a fun one to make. So for this next one, I'm going to be using a pine cone left from a pick, but I did want to show you, I had picked these up, these little pine cone ornaments from Dollar General for $1. There was a bunch of them in there, and I'm sure I got them on sale. I don't know what the cost is for something like that this year, but either way, really cheap. But I wanted to go for a larger pine cone, so I pulled this one off of a pick, and I was looking here, and I was like, no, this ribbon is too small. But I guess I don't have to tell you we're making an ornament, because that's all I'm doing in this video is making ornaments. But I took this lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm making a little bow out of this. I liked the feel of this one instead of a red ribbon, and it just wasn't as thick as I wanted. Anyways, this is the ribbon I'm using. You use what you want with whatever you've got. So cutting down a little bow, and then we also need to make a hanger. So I'm going to use more of that same lace ribbon. And when I pulled this pine cone off of its pick, I left the little stem there so that I would have something to attach to. And you can kind of see it better here in just a second. I'm going to do one side and then flip it over. You can see there's a little, stem hanging out, and then adding some more hot glue, and we're making ourselves a loop. Once I had these attached, I kind of pressed that together to seal it up. And then based on the direction of the loop is going to be what I decide is the front of the ornament. Once again, making sure that when you hang it, it's going to be facing forward. So then we have this bow to attach, but then I was like, well, I kind of want to do some embellishments. So once again, we're going to go use whatever I've got nearby to help hold this up. And I was like, well, first I'm looking at I got ahead of myself. Looking at the bow, which side's the front, which side looks better is basically which side's at the front. And then just started grabbing all of my little scraps. I've heard people call them their bits and bobbles. Whatever you've got, the little, who is that calls it that? I can't remember. But I just was going through whatever I had. I had this little berry that came off of a pick, so I'm cutting off the little wire there. and then also a couple pieces of greenery. And I've showed you these little bags of pieces. Some of this stuff just like falls off. So like when you're decorating and at the bottom of your decorating bins, there's like little bits and pieces. You can use them. I have these little bags filled with little tiny pieces, and a lot of times that's all I need is a little tiny piece. So I thought it'd be best to hot glue the greenery to the bow and then the bow to the top of the pine cone, just so that there was some good surface to attach everything to. And again, my goal is to give you inspiration. So maybe you don't make the exact same thing, but hopefully it gets your wheels turning by me showing you some of these details. I hope that it gets you thinking like, I wonder what I do have. Maybe some things that you wouldn't have thought to use, you can use. I'm gonna add that red berry to the center of the bow because I just love the pop there, and I thought this was really cute. Trim down the tails of the bow, and you could add as much or as little detail to this. Just a bow would have been fine as well. So do what you like with what you have. I love making ornaments. It's a fun thing to do with friends. It's a fun thing to do with, kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever. But I love how this came out. I love this ribbon with it. It just adds that little vintage touch. Let me know what you guys think. I don't know what's more old school than using a pipe cleaner for a Christmas ornament. I know I did that when I was a kid. So here we are. I have a red pipe cleaner, just one left, and I'm cutting it in half. And I'm going to make a little candy cane. You can use so many different things. Okay, I feel like there's so much I want to say, but I don't want this video to be too long. But there are like 6 ornaments in this. So I have some beads. These are some beaded garlands that I picked up on clearance from Dollar General. So I don't even have to paint these. If you're going to paint them, you can put them on a wooden skewer to paint them. You can put them in a plastic baggie with some paint and roll them around in there. That's a great way to easily paint them, or you can just do natural beads. And you could also use like beads for like jewelry making. Big ones, little ones. I'm thinking of those like really bright colored, but also almost translucent ones. That would be like super vintagey. I'm pretty sure there was a candy cane like that on my tree growing up. And so yeah, I'm going to thread these on. And if you don't have a pipe cleaner, a thick wire would work. It just needs to be bendable, but also somewhat sturdy. But I'm trying out a couple patterns because I had different size beads. They're not all the same size. And I say, go with what you have. If you can make a pattern, then the differences look intentional. So I was mixing it up with big beads and little beads, but the big red beads, when I tried to curve my candy cane, it didn't bend as naturally. So I am redoing it. So I'm just going to do alternating red and white. And like I said, they're not all the same size. It's okay to just use what you have, or use what you can find that is super budget friendly. To pinch this off, I'm just folding over a little end of the pipe cleaner and then adding a dab of hot glue and then pulling that last bead over where the hot glue is so that it kind of solidifies. And the hot glue will solidify so that it holds, is what I was saying. Here I am testing it and I was like, yeah, it's not going anywhere. Now the first end is easier than the last end because there's no give, because the beads are filling up all of that space, but it's still, just work with it. I don't mind the pipe cleaner hanging out at the end. In fact, I kind of liked that because I feel like I'm repeating myself, but it just reminds me of something vintage and homemade. Sometimes I want homemade stuff to not look homemade, and sometimes I want homemade stuff to look like it's homemade. Also, another thought for ornaments, these would be great gift toppers for your gifts, even if they don't have a spot to put a name on it or whatever. Just a great way to embellish your gifts. I will also link a video for you guys. I made a video last year of wrapping presents with just brown paper, and I showed all different ways to embellish it with just using the brown paper. And I'll have that linked for you if you're interested in that. That just kind of made me remember that. And then I'm using some red and white twine because why not, to make my little hanger. I just kind of was holding it up so that I could see in between what beads I wanted it so that it hung the way I wanted it to. And then I am going to tie this twice, so double knot it, because the first time left my strings going in the wrong direction. So I needed to tie it a second time so that the loop to hang this up would be in the right way. I know I'm repeating myself, but sometimes people skim through the video and then they don't see all of my tips and tricks. So then once I have the loop going the right way, just make a little knot up at the top. And however long you want to do that, I actually think in the end, I may take this hanger off and go with an old school, just Christmas tree hook right onto the candy cane, but I haven't pulled that stuff out yet, regrettably. I like to be decorated by now, but life happens. So hopefully this weekend. I say for like the third time in a row. Anyways, that is it. I just kind of feathered out where after I cut the knot, like the top of the twine, just to loosen the threads up a little bit. But I love this. So simple. And you don't even have to do red and white. You could do natural. You could do any color pattern you want. That would be a fun one to do with kids because they could just do whatever colors that they wanted. For this one, I have this wooden tree box. This came from the Dollar Tree, and I previously used the other tree. There was 2 trees on it, and so I'm just peeling that off and sanding down the bottom. Now, this is going to be a slightly larger ornament, but that doesn't bother me. I am trying to punch a hole in the top of it. I do not have one of those fancy crocodile tools. I'm just using a hole punch, thinking, well, this is pretty soft wood, which it is. This didn't totally work. It imprinted it enough that I was able to poke it through, and it's not a perfect hole, but that's okay. There's going to be another way to attach a hanger. I will explain in just a second. If you do not have this piece, there are those wood cutout, they're actually called ornaments. They come in a pack with many in them, and you can get them at the Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby. But I had this larger tree, and I was like, why not go for a slightly larger one? It's probably like the size of my hand, so it's not like enormous. We're going to paint one side of this with fern, which is a green color, beautiful green color, by Waverly chalk paint. And I'm also painting the edges because, well, I always get paint on the edges. I can never not get paint on the edges, so then I have to like purposely paint them. So we're going to do that to one side, but this is a Christmas ornament, and as I've said, you need to complete both sides to one degree or the other because ornaments turn around on the tree, so you don't want this messy paint job on the back. I could have just painted it, but it was a little bit rough in the wood area because we tore that off of something else. So we're going to Mod Podge it with some scrap paper. I went for this one that looked a little vintagey to me. As I've said, I know, repeating myself, but there's a theme in this video, and it's vintage inspired ornaments. And I didn't even let my Mod Podge fully dry, even though I am doing the iron-on method. Place parchment paper between your paper and your iron so that you don't burn your paper. Use an iron with no steam, low heat. I'm using a mini heat press, but you can use a household iron. Just skip the steam and have it on low. If you want, you can place your thread to hang up your ornament underneath the paper before you iron on. To trim off the excess paper, I'm going to use the sanding method. And so I'm just using my scissors to kind of snip in between all of these, different details on the tree to make it easier. I'm using my finger sander, and then that only worked for a couple spots because I couldn't get into the spaces. I will say, if you're going to do this is thin wood. Just hold on to it so that you don't accidentally break any pieces off. Then I tried folding some sandpaper to get into the corners. That tore, so I went in with an emery board. That ended up working out the best for this particular project, but you could also just trim it down with like an X-Acto knife or even scissors. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just wanted to kind of show you the different things you may want to try if you're having a hard time with this method. And then I do like to iron that one more time because I just kind of was rough with this piece and I just wanted to make sure everything is attached. And then when you do sand it down, sometimes you get that like white paper edge, and sometimes the wood gets sanded a little bit. So I'm going over with an ink pad. This is from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted to just dab that along the edges, but once again I was like, I can't get into the little corners, so I'm using a paper towel piece and dabbing that in and going in the edges. You can also just use either nothing, but you could use some paint on a paintbrush, just dab it off a little bit, whatever you want. I'm a big, advocate for use what you've got. I've shared that with you many times. And then I'm also going over just kind of the edges of the tree because it just gives a little bit of an older look, and I like that. I have this white pom-pom garland type stuff. I got it from the Dollar Tree so many years ago. They sell it in lots of colors, and I was like, I want to use this. Pom-poms are vintagey. I don't know if vintagey is a word, but it makes sense, so we're making it a word. But I'm going to cut down pieces and just put a few strands of that along. I'm using some hot glue, trying to be careful to not have any, hot glue show. It is supposed to look homemade, but I'm trying to not make it look too clunky here. So we're just going to do 3 strands of that like garland on a tree. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. It's a super easy way to help me out. It lets me know that you're enjoying my videos, and it lets YouTube know. And then they are more likely to share my video with other people when they see that there are people already enjoying it. So super simple way, costs you nothing. And also, if you're watching on a TV and you can't comment, which I do really appreciate the comments too, that helps me out. But you can still like, even if you're watching from a TV, and I know that a lot of my viewers do. So just thought I would add that in there. So now I need to make a little hanger. I did use a little pokey tool to poke through the hole that we had covered up with the paper on one side. And now I'm just making a little loop, and we are going to feed that. I'm going from the back to the front. You can do it however you want to do that. And we're going to pull through the loop and then open up the loop and pull the loose strands through it. And that will work perfectly there. And then make a little knot at the top and trim that off. Once again, this makes sure our hanger is going to open up in the right direction. Then I decided I wanted to put a star on top of my tree. This wood star was kind of the size I wanted, but the back side of it had like stars and stripes because it's for like 4th of July. I didn't like the open star. I ended up going with this chunky wood star here, which I actually saw has a couple of holes in it. So I guess it's supposed to be a bead. And we're going to hot glue that to the top of our tree. And I thought I was done there and then decided that I was going to add some color to it. So I have this gold chalk marker. I think that I got at Dollar Tree at some point. Chalk pen. I don't know, but I had it and I'm just coloring it. It's a rough color. It's not perfect, but not perfect kind of goes with the theme. So it worked out just fine, but I thought that was a nice little addition. I think this is a sweet little tree ornament. Like I said, it's a little larger. It's not like huge, but it's a little bit larger, which is nice. Sometimes you need, a larger ornament to fill in a gap in the tree. Let me know what you guys think about this one. These ornaments are going to look even better on a Christmas tree. If you made it this far, please leave me a green heart emoji so I know you're here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe if you are new, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.